All right, on to the group discussion board, and these are always my favorite things to recap because this is where you come into play. And I know that there is a lot of opinions that are flying around, and they are excellent. I absolutely love it. You will notice that I designed a lot of these group discussion board questions to foster a sense of conversation, to foster opinions, to foster research, all of those sorts of things, because I didn't want it to always just be an easy discussion. I wanted you guys to be able to think through why you believe what you believe. So the course administrators gave me much freedom in being able to tailor these questions to sparking conversation. So the question that we had this week was talking about the three different types of counseling that Clinton and Olschlager talk about in their book, Competent Christian Counseling. So they mentioned the integrative approach, the nouthetic approach, and the community model. And I'm not going to go through what each one of these are because by this point y'all are very well versed in what each different approach has to offer. And so what I want to come in is offer to you is just a different perspective as you are developing your own natural style, as you are becoming aware of yourself. Just a couple things that I would love for you to factor in. And of course, the first one is the client. As we talk about these three different approaches and you figuring out which one is going to work best for you, the type of clientele that you're wanting to serve is definitely going to come into play when you think about these approaches. For instance, if you are a nouthetic counselor, what would happen if a non-Christian came into your office? How would you deal with that? What sorts of approaches would you use? Would you still stick to a very strict nouthetic model? And if that is the case, how do you explain that to your client who might not be aware of what spiritual practices are, or that sin is an issue and that they need to repent of that? And so taking into account your clientele as you figure out your approach, or vice versa, your approach and then the clientele that you choose to serve is going to be very, very important. I'd also love for you to take into consideration, and this is where I love where our class discussion came into play, is dealing with people with different perspectives. For instance, I think about even believers and people who call themselves Christians. How many times do they have different perspectives about different things that aren't sinful? It's just a matter of preference. And what happens if you as a counselor do not agree with something that they're doing, but the Bible is kind of silent on that issue? What if you think it's a sin issue and they don't? So thinking about those sorts of things and how you as a community-based or an integrative or a nouthetic counselor would deal with people like in those types of situations can be very, very important. And the biggest thing that I want you to take into consideration as well is how are you going to serve the non-believer? Of course, in a nouthetic, from a nouthetic standpoint, it's going to be very difficult as the principles that most nouthetic counselors base themselves on are strictly the Bible and the Bible alone. So again, that question of what happens if a non-believer comes to you. A community-based model, when they talk about the non-believer, there's very much a sense of hope that the church would be what it is intended to be in reaching out to the community around them and the non-believer and being able to welcome them into the church and provide a place of hope and healing that is going to feel comfortable and feel safe for the non-believer to be able to explore just their lives and where they've been and make the changes necessary. That's in a perfect world, and so we also need to take into consideration is what does the church look like in our communities? How does the church reach out? Those sorts of things. And then finally, with an integrative counselor, of course, then it's finding a balance when you're working with a non-believer or somebody who doesn't share the same perspective of you, going, what does the Bible say and how do I not let go of those principles? But how do I also use what has been given to me in other sources and research in order to best serve my client? Now, I'm going to be really vulnerable here, and as you can probably guess from just my bio and my announcements, I will let you know that I definitely tend to be an integrative counselor. I find that this fits with me very much who I am, how I approach people, and how I approach life. I definitely operate from a biblical worldview in anything that I do. And that's something that I hold to be very dear. And people oftentimes ask me, how are you a Christian? And how do you counsel non-Christians? What happens if you are counseling a gay couple or a couple who is living together before they're married, or premarital sex, or violence, or divorce, or abuse, or any of those sorts of things? And so really the model that I adhere to is that, somebody said it in our discussion, that all truth is God's truth. And so the way I see it is that whatever is true, we as believers get to claim. So whatever is true in astronomy and physiology and physics and biology and economics and all of those sorts of things, whatever is true, we can bring that into the counseling room. So I look at it as a very creative process. I work with many non-believers, and so I'm always looking for creative ways to speak truth to them without necessarily saying it's from the Bible. And what's so beautiful is that truth is prevailing. It is timeless. And so whether or not I say this is a biblical truth, or I just present it as truth, it is still proclaiming God and His Word and Jesus and who He is and who He came to save. And so I just want to offer that as an encouragement, but also to explain to you who I am, where I come from, both on a personal and a professional basis. So we'll end it there. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I look forward to seeing you on the group discussion board. As always, if you have questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to contact me. I very much welcome any sort of feedback or just connection with you. Like I said, this week I'm not going to be providing a resource to you because I know that things are very much overwhelming. But in the coming weeks, you can look for those resources. They are by no means required. It's just another way that you can grow and learn both personally and professionally. So I look forward to getting to know you guys all on a much deeper basis. We've got 13 more weeks together, and I'm excited for that. Have a great day.